Jackie, thank you. And separately, the Biden administration also says it'll accept up to 30,000 migrants per month from certain countries through a humanitarian sponsorship program. For more on the border, here's this week's Hot Seat with Travers Mackle.
Tonight, we are talking about one of the biggest issues facing this country, the lifting of Title 42. A lot is happening on the southern border right now. We have all seen the sights and sounds. Hearst, the parent company of WDSU, has stations all across the country, and we have numerous crews at the border in California and in Texas. One of the people who has been on the ground in Texas for several days, Andres Valle, who works for our sister station in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but you have been in El Paso for several days. Andres, first off, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's just talk about what you're seeing in El Paso. We have all seen the images, but you are living it right now, covering it. If you could just walk us through what it's been like for everyday people in El Paso.
You know, it was a very fluid situation from when we hit the ground running to where things are today, now that Title 42 has expired. For background, I have family here in El Paso. I worked in this market. I'm no stranger to seeing these communities have to buckle down when there's a migrant surge, when there's things like this happening on the streets. It wasn't an easy thing to cover this time. On Monday, Sacred Heart Church was filled with all these migrants sleeping on the streets of El Paso. The city blocking off a street next to the church to, prevent any, pedestrian accidents. But it was very sobering, I would say even heartbreaking, watching these families sleep on the streets. Also, what a lot of people haven't really covered either is the smell. People are having to bathe on the streets in porta potties, having to use the restrooms on the streets. It was also a health issue, for these migrants as well as for the rest of the public. And from Monday to Tuesday, when CBP decided to release these letters to tell them to turn themselves in for processing, hearing how scared they were that they would get deported, and just talking to these families about their journey into the U.S. Many of them coming from Venezuela have been, abused, have been, attacked on their journey from Venezuela into the rest of Central America, into Mexico, and now being on the U.S. side. All they want is an asylum hearing date, and they're having issues with the CBP One app. And those who decided to take the courage and turn themselves into processing received dates for their asylum hearing. And some of them were happy. But as I'm reading their paperwork, the closest date I found was 2025. Most of them were going to get hearing dates in 2027. That's 5, 6, 7 years from now. And I don't know, it's one of those where, as journalists, we have to share these stories, but also you feel for the people who are living this every day in and out. They don't have the luxury of air conditioning. It's hot out here. It was dusty. And they're just waiting for who knows what. They're in limbo.
Let's talk about the people in El Paso. Like you said, you're familiar with that area. Before you worked in Albuquerque, you worked in that part of Texas. How are people, not just emergency leaders, but average citizens who live in that Texas city dealing with something like this?
It's not a black and white situation. It's I've spoken to so many people who want to help. This is their backyard. Volunteers who've told me, if you're not moved by this, there's something psychologically wrong with you. El Paso is a border community where many of these families come from the other side of the wall. They know the struggles of migrating into a new country. But then I've spoken to people who live around Sacred Heart Church who are so upset that these people won't leave their area. They're frustrated. Like, what? People are like, the smell is awful. Why are they here? Why is the city allowing them to camp out here? I've heard the frustrations. I've heard the people who want to volunteer. I've heard the store owners who said, I have to close up shop because nobody wants to come down here because of this. So it's one of those where you have to hear both sides of it. And again, there's no simple solution. And it's something that these border communities have to deal with. I think the tone, which I've gathered throughout the entire week, is no matter what happens every time there's a migrant surge in this portion of town, it becomes ground zero. but they're always left picking up the pieces. Nobody else comes in here to help them. No, nobody in New York, everybody else watching is like, oh, okay, that's El Paso. Wow, that's crazy, ground zero. But it's always the nonprofits, it's always the city leaders having to do something to fix this issue. And
Have you seen a lot of buses? I mean, look, we've seen the images of migrants being bused to cities like Washington, Chicago, New York City, places in Colorado. Have you seen that? And is there a rush for people to essentially get out of that part of Texas and get to other parts of the United States to try and not only become citizens, but to start their lives?
Yeah, I mean, El Paso is not the end all be all. It is a pit stop. Most of these people, when the buses come in, they leave. The people who receive their paperwork, one of the migrants they spoke to, Jorge Luis, he got his paperwork, and I was like, all right, what's next for you? He's like, I'm going to go try to get on a bus to go to San Antonio to be with my family. We've seen, the caravans of CBP opening up the gates of the wall and then bringing them over. Now, we don't know for sure if they were processed or they were given asylum hearing dates. But more than likely, that's what occurred. I've seen the DHS buses lining up against the wall too and loading them up. Do we know exactly where they're going? No. I know for a fact this morning, I saw some DHS buses along the border wall. They're taken to the processing center, and then some of them were taken to a shelter. The city decided to turn a school that hasn't been used for a very long time into a shelter, and that's where they're holding them for the next 2 to 3 days until they figure out what's next.
Yeah, this has a long way to go. It's not going to be over anytime soon. You have been there for several days. Like I mentioned, Hearst, the parent company of WDSU, has crews in California, Texas, and all these border towns. Really quickly, what is next in your reporting as we move forward with this? Where do you go as a journalist? What kind of stories do you try to tell to show not just the people where you're living in Albuquerque, but also the people who follow this in New Orleans?
I think the story is always going to be about the people, about the struggles, and about the hoops they have to get through. This immigration policy, we go back and forth. Something needs to change, migrants show up. Something needs to change, migrants show up. But what is the solution? We need immigration reform. And as a journalist, you have to keep pressuring your local leaders as what you're doing. I'm tired of, we're in contact with other local leaders. Okay, what are you doing? These people have lives. They have families that need them. And as a journalist, you just have to continue to watch what's going on. I mean, we've transitioned back to Title VIII, and I think many journalists have to figure out what exactly is Title VIII. This is the policy before Title 42. What we've learned this entire week through everybody's reporting, Title VIII is a lot harder for migrants to seek asylum into this country. Many of them who cross illegally now will be deported or won't be allowed into the country for 5 years. And you just have to be on standby to see what else develops. Obviously, people are going to continue to arrive on the border. I've spoken to many cartel experts. A lot of the cartels are human smugglers now. Drugs isn't their choice of revenue anymore. It's getting these people across and giving them false information. We saw this back in March. There was a reason that one of the port of entries in El Paso had to be shut down because there was a rush of migrants trying to get across because these cartels told them, hey, the border's open, which was a complete lie. And it's one of those where, as a journalist, we have to continue to produce factual information for both the English speakers and the non-English speakers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think holding people accountable and getting answers for people is the core of what we do, and it's what you're doing there on the border. Andres Valle from our sister station KOAT in New Mexico. Really quickly, how can people follow you on social media? Big interest in this in Southeast Louisiana. Do you have a Twitter handle? I know you've been doing that from the border nonstop.
Yeah, my Twitter is Andres, Andres Valle, WX. I also do weather, so ironically, if you don't see me talking about the border, I'll be talking about the weather.
All right. We appreciate your time. It's serious work that you all are doing there. That's all the time that we have. You can see this entire segment starting Monday morning on our website, WDSU.com.